You could be like, Gen Z doesn't work hard, blah, blah, blah. But every single Gen Z person that I know has a full-time job, has a part-time job, has a TikTok that they're trying to make pop off. Every Gen Z person I know has like one full-time job and then like 6 half jobs. So you can't say that we're not working hard, because it's like, you don't see it because what you see is the 140-hour job, but you don't see all of the side hustles that every Gen Z person has to do in order to get a fraction of what you had.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Imurgency and welcome back to my channel. Today we are back and we're talking about something kind of serious and also kind of sinister. Yes, something sinister is definitely in the air right now. And while yes, it can definitely be a multitude of things in this landscape of the political and economic state of the world right now.
I look and I go around sometimes and I hang out with other people that are my age and they're just kind of just look at my phone selfie. I'm just like, dude, like, oh my God, like, can we talk about like the political and economic state of the world right now?
What I'm specifically referring to is the sudden shift of how the good old 9 to 5 that Dolly Parton was singing on about, you know, the 40-hour-a-week full-time employment with benefits is increasingly becoming a 9 to 6 or 8 to 5 or more.
When did we normalize the 9 to 6 work week? And who is to blame for that? Because growing up, it was 9 to 5. Now all of a sudden I'm an adult and it's 9 to 6.
This idea initially came to mind because a lot of my friends, both in the entertainment industry and in other industries, whether full-time or freelance, have begun to notice that they are no longer working the typical 9 to 5, especially at entry level with demanding hours, late nights, or extremely early emails or call times. And that got me wondering, is the 50-hour work week or 60, 70, or even 80-hour work week becoming the new normal? And to find this out, I decided to do a little something different, be on my little Nancy Drew, and turn the mic over to you. That's right, we're gonna be hearing from you all, ranging from various industries, to get to the bottom of this. So to start this conversation off, let's begin with the state of work for everyone. And I think this period of time is especially interesting because whether you have a job or not right now, I think it's clear to see that the state of the workforce is currently bad and is only getting worser. And this isn't just for Gen Z either. People across the board, across generations, are working longer hours, and it's being felt at all levels. According to an article from CFO.com, the average work week now weighs in at 46.6 hours, according to a new survey of more than 10,000 Microsoft Office users by Reclaim AI, a Dropbox-owned provider of workforce productivity tools. And that same article goes on to note that just 3 years ago, that number was at 45.8 hours, notably above the 40-hour week moniker, which just goes to show that while these numbers may not seem like a far departure from the average 40 hours a week, things are quickly increasing.
Well, I guess because the school year hasn't started quite yet, this year, maybe there isn't like a estimate, but like for past years, like, is it generally like the 40? You go above, below?
I'll reference like from work that I recently did like last year. It's 40, but it usually goes above. I try to get out on time, but I have a big list of stuff to do. Like at my program, we have a list of things for opening and closing. And opening, I can get most of it done, but closing, if a kid has a day and they decide to dump a specific bucket of art supplies everywhere, who has to clean that up? Me. Because not always that kid will pick it up, which is understandable. But that takes extra time if my lead teacher has like tasks for me to do and I have to put them throughout the week. We have half days on Wednesday, so I try to get those tasks done, but that doesn't always work out.
Only 30.9% of employees reported working 40 hours or fewer per week, and more than 1 in 10 said they worked more than 60 weekly hours. And these aren't just random stats I'm pulling out of nowhere. From chats with friends, interviews with y'all, we're seeing that the 40-hour work week is now becoming the minimum. Meaning on paper you may be working 40 hours a week, but oftentimes to follow expectations and to remain in good standing at your place of work, people seem to be working or at least are staying in office longer. And okay, sorry, I have to do my once in every other video mention of the pandemic. here because shockingly, it has impacted more than we initially thought and reshaped the trajectory of all of our lives. But one thing that I heard that really resonated with a lot of people was that lockdown really showed them that their jobs could be done hybrid or completely remote. No longer having to factor in commute times, no need to twiddle your thumbs in office every day until 5. You can get your work done, then continue drinking your Dalgona latte, learning your super lonely dance, or your Chloe Ting ab workout. What a time, I know. But all this to say is that people really started to see their work as just that, work, not their entire lives. And also learned that a lot of the work that they did have to do was busy work, just to keep them in office for 8 hours a day. And I think we saw in 2021 and 2022, those things still sort of linger around in the workspace. But then very quickly it was all snatched back with expeditious returns to in-person, in-office work. And I don't want to say this is all done for nefarious reasons because, things like team building, collaboration, blase, whatever you want to call it, are real things and are allegedly easier to do in person than online. But I think a large reason why many people find this push to go back in office really unnecessary is, for one, we just all saw how it could work without it. And two, because work from home allows people to not have to worry about those commute times and also don't have to worry about staying in the office just for the sake of looking busy. If your productivity levels remain the same or at least similar, why would you want to be in the office from the proposed 9 to 5? And fast forward to now where the 9 to 6 or 8 to 5 are being more normalized, I think we've begun to overcorrect just a little bit. Another thing that I've started to see people point out is that the 9 to 6 or 8 to 5 work hours be normalized is due to lunch no longer being built in because it's not paid. So yes, you do work for 8 hours, but you're also technically at work for longer, unless you're lucky enough to live a walkable distance from your job. But this can also be a falsity as well. Most workplaces don't have the strictest sense of boundaries when it comes to work expectations. And depending on your work culture, a lot of these lunches can and will be allocated as working lunches. And another thing, and almost the bigger thing out of all of this, to add to the disillusionment of people, is that regardless of how many hours a week you're working, it's still seemingly is not enough to be able to afford the basic things, or really anything in today's society. It's no secret that the cost of living has skyrocketed over the past few years, with a little coffee or pastry running you at least a good $15. But I mean, you might as well get yourself a little sweet treat, because it's not like the thought of buying or owning a house with the money you're making is seemingly a reality. Even though just a few years ago, and I'm using just a few years ago very loosely, a pretty normal job was enough to buy you a house and support a whole family, which now seems crazy. And all of this combined really does start to weigh on people's mental health. And mental health is something that is really important to take care of, especially in these times. Because in today's age, if we don't take care of our mental health, we can start going down some very dangerous rabbit holes. And speaking of rabbit holes, we've all gone down a good internet rabbit hole, right? Like looking up your health symptoms on WebMD, searching for that one niche Reddit post about your exact relationship problem. You get the picture. But have you ever felt stuck in that rabbit hole and fear starts to take over? Like maybe you're reading about terminal illness for hours, and now you can't shake the thought that you might be dying. Or like you can't stop watching breakup TikToks because even though your relationship is perfectly fine, or even if you don't have a relationship, you're spiraling about the possibility of potentially being in the wrong one. A lot of people are surprised to learn that those experiences can be signs of OCD. But it's true, the stereotypes of OCD are usually completely wrong. Real OCD attacks whatever matters most to you with intrusive thoughts. It can make you doubt your relationships, fear for your health, and second guess every decision. Then it drives you to do certain things to try and make the distress go away or feel more certain, like constantly seeking reassurance or avoiding the thing that you've been worried about. But instead of providing relief, these behaviors only fuel OCD. Left untreated, OCD is one of the most debilitating mental health conditions. But the good news is it responds incredibly well to the right therapy. Not just any therapy though. OCD needs a type of therapy called ERP, or exposure and response prevention. And that is where NoCD comes in. NoCD is the world's leading provider in OCD treatment, with licensed therapists that specialize in treating OCD with ERP therapy. NoCD offers live, face-to-face virtual sessions, and they're covered by insurance for over 155 million Americans. They also provide support between sessions so you're never navigating your OCD on your own. And if any of this sounds familiar, don't wait. Visit nocd.com and book a free call with their team to get connected to someone who can help. That's nocd.com. Thanks so much, NoCD, for sponsoring this video. Let's get back into it. But getting back into the state of work right now, if you ever want to imagine getting out of the rat race, honestly, good luck, because the job market right now for anyone looking for something new or just a job in general are bad and aren't getting any better. Because this comes as last month's job report has announced that jobs have not only slowed down, but unemployment has began to rose. Now let's talk about the state of work specifically for Gen Z.
I'm sorry, what the do you mean? The fact that I got off work at 5 o'clock, takes an hour for me to get home, I had an hour-long commute today, It's 6 o'clock, and in order to meet my 6 a.m. wake up call, I gotta go to bed in 4 hours. Oh my God! Having 3 to 4 hours to spend on yourself, cleaning, cooking, prepping, the gym, maybe, a Pilates class, maybe go painting a little bit, a hobby. It's my first day, like officially in office in corporate America, and I'm already like, oh my God, what Sincerely, a girl who's been in the service industry and waited tables for the past 5 years. Oh my God, what do you mean?
And as this TikTok is saying, this is only 4 hours for yourself. Now imagine that if you have children. Right. So I don't want to hear any of y'all question the birth rate decline. But yeah, put simply, the job market sucks right now. And we've made a couple of videos on this channel talking about the subject, such as the Gen Z stare video or the Gen Z recession video. But I fear this is not something that's going away anytime soon, and is arguably only getting worse. Talking to other Gen Zers, it seems that there are 3 general categories here. 1, people that are straight up unemployed, likely frantically applying for jobs and have a extensive Excel sheet going of all the places that they're applying. 2, fully employed but miserable, or at least looking to improve their working conditions for their next position or their current position, but generally feeling this sense of guilt for even talking about it because, you know, the job market is so tough right now. Lucky to have a job, so why complain about it? Or 3, the gig/part-time worker, who generally has the most insane and inconsistent schedule.
2025 Gen Zs are the new 2008 millennials, and if you don't believe me, I have the stats to prove it. According to Business Insider, entry-level postings are down 15%, while applications per job are up 30%. The bottom rung of the career ladder has completely been wiped out. And why? It's because AI is taking all these jobs. According to Goldman Sachs, generative AI could automate up to 25% of all work globally, wiping out many junior roles that grad used to train in. Even if you land a job, you're probably underemployed because according to St. Louis Fed, 52% of all Gen Z graduates are underemployed in their first job, meaning more than half of them are working jobs that don't even require their degree. Or if you're not underemployed, you're forced into the gig economy. According to Business Insider again, Gen Z is 58% more likely than millennials at the same age to take gig or freelance work because traditional careers aren't hiring. Experts warn, this is shaping up to be a job crisis for Gen Z, one that rivals and may even surpass what millennials faced in 2008.
And this dynamic has created an environment where people that currently do have full-time jobs are clinging to those jobs for dear life and are trying so hard to meet and exceed expectations without exactly ever really knowing what those expectations are. And because of how rocky the job market is and the considerable amount and frequency of layoffs, I feel like most of my full-time employment friends are feeling like they're walking on eggshells, taking up more responsibility than needed or is in their job description because there are less people for the same amount of work, meaning that they have to take on all the workloads for the people that were laid off around them without having a positive change in compensation for that increase in work. But hey, you're lucky you're still there and you're not fired and you have a job and you have employment. So again, you can't complain. And I get why these friends are nervous.
Expectations have been set, but do I understand them?
Right. Like, are these expectations set on you or are these like suggestions?
Exactly. So I'm just like, again, trying to like find that balance of like, what do you want from me, what I should be doing, and what more, like, if I do it, will be like moving me forward and all that.
One commonality between the gig/part-time workers and the full-time Gen Z employees, regardless of where you are, is the general lack of time to do anything outside of your job. You see how the tables have turned from like 2020 when like we were exploring what life looked like outside of work and understanding like, wow, work isn't supposed to be all of your life, to the complete 180 that we're at now, where work is consuming pretty much all of our lives. Which again, I do have to hop on my high horse and say, I do not want to hear any Gen Z is lazy at work slander, because trust and believe all of the stuff that the boomers and the Gen Xers were so concerned about Gen Z not doing, like Gen Z not working, we're working. We have no time for anything else. Like, you may think that us walking into work with a nice latte or whatever means that we have all the time in the world. I assure you that that is not the case, because we are getting off at the same time as you are. We have the same amount of hours in the day, and everyone is going through it right now.
I'd say for me, the worst aspects of working, of Amazon, of my current job is time. I work morning for my own sanity, but that means that I wake up every single day at 4:15 a.m. That's too early. The sun has not gone outside. Birds are still sleeping and I'm waking up. The shift ends at 2:45 p.m., which is okay. Travel time, I usually get home at about 3:30 p.m. I still technically have the evening for myself, but like Time is the biggest struggle because while I technically have the evening to myself, the job leaves me so physically exhausted and drained.
Many people find themselves in the position of, well, yes, seemingly having time on paper to live outside of work, but oftentimes these jobs that are available to us are absolutely draining and don't account for things like commute time and leave you with virtually no energy to do things except maybe the essential adult things like grocery shopping, cleaning, cooking, chores, etc. Like, why does it feel like we have to choose between being a fully functioning adult or like seeing friends, having hobbies, and engaging in like third spaces?
I don't really get to say we have open enrollment, so it's not really like a zoning thing. It's just whoever like comes, they come. And it's not like, sorry, we got too many kids in this class. Like, kind of got to deal with 36 being in here.
Right.
Sorry. And it's just like, okay. And that's really challenging because there's only one of me and there's so many like different kids at the service. Not the kids' fault at all. Love them down. They're super great. But it's a lot to deal with because it's like a constant feeling of being on, right? And like how that works for like my mental health, especially this week. Girl, I've slept on my couch 4 days, all 4 days. Because as soon as I get home, I take my dog out, make sure he's fed, get him some water, take him out one more time. I'm up for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, get to watching the show, I'm out. Suddenly 6 o'clock the next day and I had to go to work again.
And by now, if you've seen any videos on this channel, you already know what's coming next. You already know what I'm going to say because I say it in every single video. And it's not because I'm beating a dead horse, although Lord knows when it comes to this, we gonna beat it. But it's because it's genuinely so important and like we just still are struggling to do it well. And that is community. And more so the fact that the current state of work right now is straining community. Like, yes, community and work have coexisted before. That's always been a thing. But because for Gen Z, we are in these entry level and just now getting into maybe some mid-level middle management roles that are all becoming significantly more demanding as these layoffs, as these increases in work expectations are occurring, they're taking up more of our time, making us more constantly consecutively tired, meaning that we don't have time or that it's harder to make time to build, foster, and participate in these acts of community. But of course, you know, we still got to carry on because if we want a village, we got to be on our villager duties and we still got to put in the effort that we want to see in the communities that we want to be a part of. And oftentimes that means showing up even when you are tired. So I can't say that this is the entire reason behind the loneliness epidemic that we're experiencing, but it just adds another barrier to entry, or at least a challenge that we find ourselves facing in these strives to not be isolated and to have a group of people that care about us around us. Overall, it just seems that across the board, but likely more specifically Gen Z, because we're the newest people in the workforce, are feeling just more disillusioned with the job market. So now we got to talk about tech. As a former tech baddie myself, and this might be new lore to some of y'all, I used to work in tech before I started yapping on here. Recently, some tech companies have gotten a little too comfortable, applauding and even some adopting the 996 work week. Now you may be asking, what is that seemingly random bathroom code set of numbers? And the answer may gag you, because it is quite gaggy. 996 is the work week that consists of working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. And this goes without saying, if you still have a cushy tech job that's remote with benefits, then I sincerely applaud you. I'm really happy for you. Get that bag and keep that bag. But there are rumblings of this sort of work setup happening, especially at AI startups in Silicon Valley, to try and win the AI race. Whatever that means. Experts are calling the 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week culture corporate abuse. Yet America's top business leaders work relentless hours. Apple CEO Tim Cook sends emails as early as 4:30 a.m. Former Yahoo CEO Marissa Mayer reportedly clocked up to 130 hours a week. And Tesla CEO, that punk, is known to work 120 hours a week. Some members of the C-suite expect employees to match their 996 work schedules. Funnily enough, back in 2022, Musk was accused of corporate slavery, perpetuating work abuse and job burnout, while praising Chinese employees of Tesla for burning the 3 a.m. oil. He said Americans are trying to avoid going to work at all. That's a lot, and that's a lot of crazy. I know a lot of that had to do with C-suite, but again, as the back half of that source says, it's not too far before they start going like, well, if we're doing it, they should be doing it too. And obviously this all is egregious, and I'm not saying that we are anywhere near this in this current moment, but as patterns tend to show, tech seems to be a canary in the coal mine for work industries and working conditions. So what happens there tends to trickle down in different ways into the rest of corporate and into the rest of the working environment. So let's hope for dear luck that this stuff does not stick. But for now, let's put a pin in tech because we're going to revisit her later. We now talk about the AI replacement theory. You may have heard through rumblings online and on the news that AI is coming knocking at your door to try and steal your job. Not if you have anything to do about it. And there's been a lot of talks about the AI replacement theory and rumblings on the internet. And if you haven't heard this term, let's have Google AI overview, which I can't seem to stop from popping up, explain it for us. The AI replacement theory is the widespread concern that artificial intelligence will automate and replace human jobs, leading to mass unemployment and a potential reshaping of society. Some experts believe AI will augment and create new jobs, while others argue that the speed and scope of automation will be unprecedented and pose serious threats to the workforce. We've seen this in the tech sector especially, perhaps for two reasons. The first being it is thought that tech is a sector that kind of leads the way in terms of innovation, or at least trends in the workforce. What happens in tech first can and likely is spread to other sectors and industries.
Here's the wonderful thing about like banks and like credit unions and financial institutions is most of us, you know, you're gonna be like, oh, AI is gonna take our jobs or whatever. We're still operating in 1700 BC. Like our computers, we don't even all have two monitors. Like we half of the time our it's broken, our keyboard's up. We have one monitor over here. Oh, this is the monitor. Don't use this one. Oh, that one in the back, that's the backstage that has all the up stuff. Like we don't even have enough technology to start using AI.
And as for layoffs, they have definitely been a canary in the coal mine, because what we saw in the big wave of layoffs in tech in 2023 and 2024 from tech and digital jobs, including Twitter, Amazon, Salesforce, Klarna, Google, and so many more, all come down and happen in specific ways before we saw them anywhere else. So she being Miss AI, is allegedly coming for us, and that's been a fear. Except interestingly enough, when I asked people what their thoughts were in terms of like AI taking their jobs, it didn't seem like a lot of people that I interviewed were actually that concerned.
Placing certain roles and stuff, I'm not entirely sure. It's definitely going to create like new dynamics and like new expectations for the roles, and maybe unfortunately a few things will be a little bit obsolete, but I don't think it'll be like a whole throw the baby out with the bathwater situation where it's like, okay, my role as like a strategist or something has like changed slightly. Like this isn't necessarily labor I cover. Maybe there's like something new I end up doing.
And I think it really comes down to the fact that when we're talking about AI replacement, the threat level really does depend on where and how often and the ways in which AI can be incorporated in your job, of whether or not you need to be scared of AI coming to steal your gig. Like, of course, fields such as software development are extremely vulnerable right now because AI can come and write code at accelerated rates. You also have fields like customer service being heavily affected because more companies are using AI assistants to help with the stuff that customer service would traditionally do. And positions in finance are definitely being hit the hardest. However, jobs that lack the online data needed to be replaced by AI are relatively safe, like things like healthcare, because of HIPAA and how scattered patient information is. Construction, which is one of the most AI-proof things right now, and education for now, because for now, FERPA and student privacy laws protect it. And right now, what we're seeing with AI implementation, the main roles that are being impacted right now are those middle management roles. It's not as much entry level, and it's definitely not the higher level C-suite. So it kind of fragments a lot of us. And that's kind of where I feel bad for millennials, because they typically are right now in those middle management roles. Whereas like older millennials, boomers, and Gen Xers are in those higher level roles, and Gen Z, for the most part, is taking up the entry levels. Which kind of leads me to my next conversation around layoffs. Because of course, the aforementioned safe careers from AI aren't necessarily safe from other things like funding cuts or general layoffs. Because as we know, and as I've heard from people in interviews, public health is being defunded. And that field and many other fields have other ways of being made vulnerable.
I got that notice already. So like I said, the research budgets does this thing where they internally fund research. And so a lot of the money for the research does come from the institution, and they're cutting down on research budgets, especially with my professor who's an emeritus status. So again, she's not an active researcher who's like consistently putting out articles, and money does follow like active research that's replicable. And so I got in April, I was like, March and April, I was like, hey, reappointment comes up a little later. Like, am I good? And she was like, yeah, you're good. We're going to ask you back. Usually anything under 2 years is like, oh, then why'd you come here? especially because academia works a little bit slower than corporate. And so I was like, okay, good. Like, I'm good to go for next year. And she was like, yeah, you are. And I was like, okay. And then at the end of May, it was like a professional, I'm coming to you as a woman type email where it was like, hey, so you should probably start looking around. And I was like, okay. And then they were like, you're going to have a meeting with HR and we're going to bring in the Top Gun. And I was like, oh, okay, so I'm getting fired.
Namely, at the moment are the government job layoffs and hiring freezes going on. With the government defunding industries such as healthcare, the sciences, education, and public media, it's creating a ripple effect.
A lot of these people like lost their jobs. No severance pay, no nothing. It's just like, hey girl, since we're contracts, right? You have to renew it every single year. And it was just like, so you're not getting a contract this year, but we can put you on as like maybe like a para or something, or a secretary if you have like clerical background and things like that. But obviously not everybody has those credentials. And the problem with being a librarian, you have to have a master's degree. So you're demoting me and giving me less pay when I have more education experience. So that was like a really big thing for a while. Plus, as like a campus as a whole, we were losing like staff. So whereas you may have had a lot of people in the hallways, it becomes the teacher's job to kind of sacrifice some of your own class time to kind of monitor what's going on in the hallways. Or rather than having a teacher and a in-support person, it's only just a teacher. And, the in-supports rotate every few blocks, which kind of makes it a little bit more difficult, especially when we're talking about our more behavior-focused kids, our special needs students.
In general, uncertainty to other jobs that receive funding or grants. And regardless of industry, with layoffs comes understaffing. The people who were laid off, whether the powers that be want to admit it or not, had real roles and duties to fulfill that their still employed counterparts will then have to pick up the slack to do. Which, not to play the which is worse Olympics, but that creates a pretty situation for all workers involved.
Yes, I won't go into specific what my program is, but programs like mine, and mine in particular, have cut off programs for after school elementary students and toddlers for lack of funding. We've also lost administrator jobs. And so a lot of times my supervisor had like an assistant in her office. She doesn't have that anymore. So she has to do a lot of the office work. But that is so much work because sometimes someone will walkie-talkie her because they need help with a kid, and then someone will come up to the office, no one's there. But we don't have the funds to have another person anymore. And I was really worried last year because there was a possibility we were losing services for kids, and services that a lot of our kids with bigger behaviors needed. And thankfully we have them for this year, but who knows for next year how that funding will go.
And that kind of brings me to this final point of like, something's gotta give. Like, something has to happen to change this because we are all being squeezed out of like the last of our resources right now. We are living in such a weird and uncharted territory right now. AI is advancing and set to take over a lot of tech and digital forward jobs. Employed people are being overworked, underpaid, understaffed. New job postings are going down while the unemployment rate is continuing to rise month after month. And the general job market just is not looking too hot. And I mean, of course, right now, when it comes to what should you do, the common and safe answer has historically been like, oh, go back to school. It seems like right now that degrees aren't doing anything to help either. You have people with master's degrees, PhD degrees, still being unemployed and having to pick up jobs that they are overqualified for.
I have a bachelor's degree, which means I have no opinion in academia.
That's crazy to say. That's crazy that's like the case.
Well, yeah, it's like you got the bare minimum. Because if you think about it, with your bachelor's degree, it was 2 years of gen ed. Mm-hmm. And then you got into like specialized things. It's like, I have a PhD.
Right.
And I've been doing X amount of research on top of that because she did OB, but usually people do a postdoc. So it's after you get your doctorate degree where you then do like another internship type deal. And then you become a professor, assistant professor, and then you're an assistant professor on the tenure track, and then you make tenure. And then you go out and celebrate because you are set for life.
It's quite normal and called for, quite honestly, to feel frustrated and angry with this whole situation because it's not fair. Because as a generation, we are sold a dream. We are sold a way of life that if we did these certain things, we'll be granted or at least would have a shot at. And it has been a long time of us having to wake up repeatedly to whatever nightmare this current reality is. And everyone has their boogeymen and groups to blame for why we're in this position. Again, see my recession video to see potentially a reason behind why we're better here. But where does this leave us? Is a universal basic income on the horizon since we're all losing our jobs? Probably not. I don't even want to go that route. I don't even know what we're going to do. There is a large wealth disparity being exacerbated right now, and it is becoming harder and harder to keep up and do what we need to do. And the expansions into these working conditions is not making things any better. Whether that be the increase in expectations, the obscurity of the expectations that are put upon us, or just the general feelings of uncertainty with our generation, we are going through it. But I guess the silver lining behind all this is that we aren't necessarily the only ones going through it, because this is happening to everyone across the board. And there really needs to be some kind of change, whether that be legislatively, socially, or professionally, because the way that we're currently on track to go is not going to benefit anyone, but I'd probably say the top 2%, which I don't know, maybe that's the goal.